Welcome to Max Premieres. 2026 doesn't let up. 20 films ranging from survival thrillers in the Australian outback to the biggest superhero battle in cinema history with Spielberg doing Aliens, Nolan doing Ancient Greeks, the X-Men, He-Man, and the long-awaited return of Mando and Grogu to the big screen. If there's one complaint about this year, it's that there are too many things to watch and not enough time. But before we get started, it would mean a lot if you took a moment to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for the support. Number 20, Apex. Sasha is a grieving rock climber looking for solitude in the Australian outback. She's lost someone important, and the wilderness feels like the only place where she can process that weight. What she doesn't know is that someone is already waiting for her. Ben is a local hunter with a code of his own. He doesn't kill animals, he kills people, and she's his next target. He gives her a head start of a few minutes before he starts following her with all his skill. Apex is a stripped-down survival thriller. One woman, one killer, and terrain that doesn't forgive. Director Baltasar Kormákur. Everest Adrift uses the natural landscape as a character in its own right, and the Blue Mountains cinematography is stunning in every frame. Charlize Theron carries the film on her shoulders with a physical and emotional intensity that's completely convincing. Taron Egerton steps well outside his comfort zone to build a cold, methodical villain who isn't looking for anyone's sympathy. The tension holds from start to finish without major detours. The script doesn't push beyond the premise, but what it offers it executes well. Streaming on Netflix since April 24th. Number 19, Hokum. Writing horror when real life is weighing on you becomes unsustainable. Oom Bauman knows this well. A successful novelist, a heavy drinker, and a man loaded with guilt, he arrives at a remote Irish inn to scatter his parents' ashes, the place where they honeymooned decades ago. The staff tells him there's a witch sealed in the honeymoon suite for generations. Oom dismisses it as local folklore until the visions start and a hotel employee vanishes without a trace. Hokum is Damien McCarthy's third film, following Caveat and Odyssey, the two movies that earned him a place in contemporary horror. This is his most ambitious and polished work. It blends supernatural horror with a noir mystery structure that has you solving a crime while navigating a genuinely supernatural threat. Adam Scott brings a sober vulnerability to the lead that's perfectly calibrated for the tone. The hotel's production design is a demonstration of how to build horror through space and atmosphere before reaching for jump scares. The score is from Joseph Bishara, composer of Insidious. Neon released it in US theaters in May 2026 to excellent critical reception. Number 18, Mortal Kombat 2. This time, the tournament is real. Earthrealm's champions have survived. The Maze, the Scorch, and more than one attempt to wipe them out. But now Shao Kahn is called the official tournament, and there's no avoiding it. The supreme ruler of Outworld demands the competition, and Earth's warriors have no choice but to enter. With Johnny Cage joining the team and old rivalries reignited, the true battle for Earthrealm's survival begins in earnest. Mortal Kombat 2 delivers the tournament the first film promised without fully showing. Simon McQuoid returns to direct from Jeremy Slater's script, and the addition of Karl Urban as Johnny Cage is the film's clearest bet, someone who can carry both the humor and the action with genuine credibility. Adeline Rudolph as Kitana and Tati Gabrielle as Jade expand the universe with two of the franchise's most beloved characters. The budget is bigger, the scale is bigger, and so is the violence. If the first film set up the tournament, this one delivers it. Number 17, The Punisher. One Last Kill. Frank Castle has been carrying the weight of being the Punisher for too long. He's tried to leave it behind, but the world has a persistent way of finding dangerous men when it needs them. A new organized threat has taken hold of his city and shows no sign of letting go, and Castle knows that nobody else is going to do what needs to be done. This will be his final mission. The Punisher. One Last Kill brings back one of Marvel's darkest characters, promising a raw and more direct story than the previous adaptations. Rick Romanois, directing known for Wrath of Man and Shot Caller, is a solid guarantee that the tone will be serious from the opening scene. Lead cast details remain under wraps, but the premise lands exactly at the character's core, a man who can no longer clearly tell whether he's pursuing justice or simply cannot stop. The violence here isn't spectacle, it's consequence. The dramatic arc has real potential, and the director has exactly the right profile to execute it. Number 16. In the Gray. An elite team of operatives receives a seemingly impossible mission: recover a billion-dollar fortune stolen by a despot who operates with complete impunity. They live in the shadows of global power, as comfortable with weapons as they are with high-stakes negotiations. But what starts as a controlled heist spirals into a chain of betrayal and survival, where every decision could be the last for anyone on the team. In the Gray is Guy Ritchie in full classic mode: sharp dialogue, stylized shootouts, and the kind of lead chemistry that holds the whole film together. Henry Cavill and Jake Gyllenhaal form a duo with visible energy from the first trailer, and Eiza Gonzalez rounds out the trio as the handler keeping them alive. Christopher Hivju and Rosamund Pike add genuine weight to the supporting cast. Ritchie built his reputation on exactly this kind of material and returns to it here with total confidence. The film arrived with some delay from its original date, building extra anticipation along the way. If the execution matches the premise, this is one of the year's most solid surprises. Number 15. Star Wars: The Mandalorian and Grogu. The Empire fell, but its remnants keep sowing chaos across the galaxy. The New Republic needs someone they can trust to face those threats, and the best candidate is Din Djarin, the Mandalorian bounty hunter who has formed an inseparable clan with his apprentice Grogu. Together, they take on a new mission: rescue a prisoner from the Hutts in exchange for vital intelligence. It's the first Star Wars film in theaters since 2019. Jon Favreau directs and co-writes alongside Dave Filoni, the two architects of the original Disney Plus series. Pedro Pascal leads the cast, with Sigourney Weaver as the film's most notable new addition, playing Colonel Ward, a veteran of the rebellion. Jeremy Allen White also joins the ensemble. Ludwig Göransson returns to score the film. The anticipation is enormous. The affection for these characters is completely intact, and the May 22nd release positions this as the Star Wars event fans have been waiting years to see. The weight of being the franchise's first theatrical return in 7 years is pressure not every film can handle. Number 14. Backrooms. A man falls out of reality. The floor seems to give way beneath his feet, and what comes next is an endless hallway of yellow fluorescent light and damp carpet stretching in all directions without any apparent end. The Backrooms are an infinite liminal space where the logic of the real world doesn't apply and where something lives between the walls. The film adaptation begins with a door that appears in the basement of a furniture store. Backrooms is the feature-length adaptation of Kane Parsons' viral YouTube series, with the 20-year-old filmmaker becoming the youngest director in A24's history. The film is produced by James Wan, Sean Levy, and Osgood Perkins, and stars Chiwetel Ejiofor, Renate Reinsve, and Mark Duplass. The Backrooms universe tapped into a collective anxiety about the modern world, and the theatrical version has all the ingredients to turn it into something genuinely unsettling on the big screen. The concept is pure psychological horror, with its own internal logic that holds all the way through. Number 13. Masters of the Universe. Adam Glenn is 10 years old when he's launched from Eternia to Earth at full speed, separated from the Sword of Power, his only connection to his home world and his true identity. 20 years later, Adam is living as an ordinary man stuck in a gray job when the sword reappears in his life. The call is unavoidable. Eternia is under Skeletor's tyrannical rule, and his family and his world need Adam to become He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. Masters of the Universe closes out decades of failed attempts to bring the franchise to the big screen with a real, well-backed production. Travis Knight, director of Kubo and the Two Strings and Bumblebee, handles the tone with precision, balancing fantasy epic with origin story comedy. Nicholas Galitzine leads the cast alongside Camila Mendez as Tila, Idris Elba as Man-at-Arms, Alison Brie as Evil Lynn, and Jared Leto as Skeletor. Amazon MGM distributes globally on June 5th. Nostalgia is the engine, but the material has enough substance of its own. Number 12. The Furious. In today's international organized crime world, the best martial artists work as hitmen, bodyguards, and enforcers. Wang Wei is none of those things. He's a humble trader with no history of violence until his daughter is kidnapped and the police turn out to be on the payroll. With no options and no time, he starts fighting. His only ally is Naveen, a journalist with secrets of his own and more skill than he lets on. What follows is an escalating chain of combat that never lets up. The Furious is Hong Kong action cinema directed by Kenji Tanigaki, one of Asia's most respected action choreographers and directors, responsible for sequences in Raging Fire and Flashpoint. The cast includes Joe Taslim, Yayan Ruhian, and Jija Yanin, a dream team of Asian action stars that hadn't been assembled together in quite this way before. The reception at the 2025 Toronto Film Festival was extraordinary. Critics agree. The script is functional, the dialogue is rough, but the fight sequences are among the most impressive the genre has produced in years. Number 11, Disclosure Day. For 79 years, governments around the world have been hiding the same truth. Margaret Fairchild is a Kansas City meteorologist with a past in investigative journalism. When a young cybersecurity expert arrives in her life with documents proving that truth exists and can no longer be ignored, everything she thought she knew about the world starts to collapse. What's about to be revealed is too big for any power structure to contain any longer. Disclosure Day is Steven Spielberg's return to extraterrestrial science fiction after more than 20 years. With a screenplay by David Koop, his collaborator on Jurassic Park and War of the Worlds, the film stars Emily Blunt, Josh O'Connor, Colin Firth, and Coleman Domingo, exploring what happens to humanity when the truth it always suspected finally arrives. John Williams composes the score, marking his 30th collaboration with Spielberg. The June 12th release in theaters and IMAX positions this as one of the year's great cinematic events. Number 10. The Death of Robin Hood. Legend says he was a hero. The truth is darker and more complicated than any song or story ever told about him. Robin Hood is wounded and close to death, carrying the full weight of everything he did to become the character everyone knows, the betrayals, the crimes, the people left behind along the way. A mysterious woman offers him one last chance at salvation, but redemption is never that simple. The Death of Robin Hood is an A24 film written and directed by Michael Sarnowski, the filmmaker behind A Quiet Place, Day One, and Pig. Hugh Jackman plays an aged, weary Robin Hood, a reading that echoes James Mangold's Logan in its willingness to treat a hero's twilight years as genuine drama. Jodie Comer co-stars. The decision to reframe the legend as a somber thriller about guilt and regret rather than a conventional adventure has real potential to surprise audiences, expecting something predictable. It opens June 19th. Number 9. Supergirl. Growing up in a shattered world hardens you in ways that training never could. Kara Zor-El survived the destruction of her Kryptonian home, but that survival came at a cost that shaped everything she is. Unlike her cousin Clark, Kara's path wasn't forged in a world that welcomed her from the start. Her story was built on pain and endurance. When cosmic forces threaten Earth, she has to decide whether she's willing to protect a planet that still doesn't feel like home. Supergirl is the second film in the DC universe under James Gunn and Peter Safran, based on Tom King's acclaimed graphic novel, Woman of Tomorrow. Millie Alcock, known for House of the Dragon, brings the intensity the character demands. Jason Momoa appears as Lobo, injecting a completely different energy into the universe's tone. Matthias Schoenaerts rounds out the main cast. Expectations are high after the success of Superman, and King's source material is among the most compelling DC has put into production in years. Number 8. Moana. The ocean is calling, and Moana, the chief's daughter, has always known it, even if she's spent years resisting that pull. When the forces that maintain her culture's balance start to weaken, she understands that she has to go beyond the reef to find answers. The journey leads her to Maui, the shape-shifting demigod who holds the heart of Te Fiti, and together they set out on an adventure that will test both of their courage in unexpected ways. The live-action version arrives 10 years after the animated original that earned $643 million worldwide, whose 2024 sequel crossed $1 billion globally. Thomas Kail directs Catherine Lagaaya in her feature film debut as Moana, while Dwayne Johnson returns as Maui in a role he's already made his own. Lin-Manuel Miranda, Opataya Fawai, and Mark Mancina return for the music. Disney is betting that the warmth of the characters, the Polynesian heritage, and the beloved songs are enough to justify revisiting this story. It opens July 10th in cinemas worldwide. Number 7. The Odyssey. There are gods who help, and gods who get in the way. There are monsters that devour and sirens that paralyze. And in the middle of all of it, one man who just wants to get home. Odysseus has spent 10 years fighting at Troy. The war is over, but the road back becomes an odyssey of divine trials, monsters, and temptations that challenge his wit and his soul at every leg of the journey. The Odyssey is Christopher Nolan's cinematic adaptation of Homer's epic poem starring Matt Damon as Odysseus. The cast includes Tom Holland, Zendaya, Anne Hathaway, Robert Pattinson, Charlize Theron, Mia Goth, and Jon Bernthal, among many others. The score is by Hans Zimmer and the cinematography by Hoyte van Hoytema. The film was shot in Greece, Italy, Scotland, Malta, Iceland, and Morocco on a $250 million budget using 70mm IMAX cameras. Few projects generate this level of anticipation based purely on the director's name. The July 17th release in theaters and IMAX makes it one of summer 2026's biggest events. Number 6. Spider-Man: Brand New Day. Peter Parker lives completely alone. Doctor Strange's spell erased his name from everyone's memory, and Peter is still a full-time Spider-Man in a New York that has no idea who he is. No family, no friends, no history, just the city and the infinite weight of responsibility. When a new threat emerges from the shadows and something begins to change in him physically in ways he doesn't understand, Parker faces his darkest and most isolated challenge yet. Spider-Man: Brand New Day is Tom Holland's fourth film as Peter Parker, directed by Destin Daniel Cretton. The return of Zendaya, Jacob Batalon, and Jon Bernthal as Frank Castle gives the arc genuine emotional continuity. Mark Ruffalo also appears as Bruce Banner. The total isolation premise gives this entry a dramatic potential the previous films didn't have. The tension between being Spider-Man full-time and still being Peter Parker is the heart of the story. The July 31st release positions it as Marvel's big summer event. Number 5. Mutiny. Cole Reed witnessed the murder of his billionaire boss. Instead of becoming the witness justice needed, he became the prime suspect overnight. Now he's running, searching for the evidence that will clear his name while uncovering a conspiracy that goes far deeper than anyone could have imagined from the outside. Every person he trusts could be part of the problem, and the margin for error is zero. Mutiny is a chase action thriller starring Jason Statham, who works the wrongly accused man genre here with the same physical commitment as his previous films, but against a globally scaled conspiracy backdrop. The film opened in UK and European cinemas in August 2026 through Studio Canal distribution. The wrongly accused man on the run has a solid tradition in English-language action cinema, and success depends almost entirely on pacing and the believability of the lead when there's no way out in sight. Statham is exactly the kind of actor who can sustain that arc. Number 4. Street Fighter. Ryu and Ken have been apart for years, each following their own path. When Agent Chun-Li recruits them for the World Warrior Tournament, what looks like an international martial arts competition turns out to be a front for something far darker and more dangerous. A conspiracy surfaces from beneath the tournament, and the two historic rivals have to set their differences aside to survive what's waiting for them. Street Fighter has spent decades waiting for a film adaptation that's truly worthy of the most iconic fighting video game franchise in history. This version bets on taking its characters and universe seriously while delivering the visual energy and action spectacle that audiences have been asking for. The main characters arrive with their designs completely intact and recognizable to anyone who grew up with the game in arcades. The franchise's troubled adaptation history calls for caution before celebrating, but the premise has a solid foundation, and the October 16th release gives it a point in the calendar with less direct franchise competition. Number 3. The Hunger Games: Sunrise on the Reaping. 24 years before Katniss Everdeen took her place in the arena, Panem held the 50th Hunger Games, the most brutal in its history. Twice the tributes, twice the deaths. Haymitch Abernathy, a young man from District 12, is selected to compete in the deadliest arena the capital has ever built. What he lives through there will mark him forever and explain the distant, alcoholic man audiences know from the original saga. The Hunger Games: Sunrise on the Reaping features Joseph Zada as Haymitch, Jesse Plemons, Ralph Fiennes as President Snow, Glenn Close, Elle Fanning as a young Effie Trinket, and Kieran Culkin as Caesar Flickerman. Francis Lawrence, director of Catching Fire and both Mockingjay films, returns to helm with a screenplay by Billy Ray. Suzanne Collins' novel sold over 1.5 million copies in its first week, making it the strongest debut in the franchise's history. Haymitch's dramatic potential and the scale of the production make this one of the year's most anticipated releases. Number 2. Dune, Part 3. Paul Atreides has spent 12 years ruling the known universe as Muad'Dib, the world bent to his will, but the price was a holy war that spread across entire galaxies and left millions dead in his name. Now, the same forces that elevated him are conspiring to destroy him, and his visions are clouded by powers he neither controls nor fully understands. The decisions of the coming days could reshape the fate of all humanity in ways that cannot be undone. Dune, Part 3 closes Denis Villeneuve's trilogy with the most complex and politically ambitious material in the entire saga. Frank Herbert's Dune Messiah is a radical inversion of the classic hero. The protagonist is no longer the chosen one fighting for the throne, he's the tyrant the universe wants to overthrow. Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Florence Pugh, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Jason Momoa all return. Robert Pattinson joins as villain Scytale. Hans Zimmer also returns. The December 18th release positions this alongside Avengers. Doomsday as the year's great cinematic closing event. Fans are already calling it Doomsday. Number 1. Avengers, Doomsday. Victor Von Doom, ruler of Latveria and the most dangerous genius on the planet, unleashes a multiversal crisis that threatens to consume all of reality. The Avengers have no choice but to reassemble, but this time the enemy is several steps ahead of all of them. Wakandans, the Fantastic Four, the New Avengers, and the X-Men converge in the biggest battle the Marvel Cinematic Universe has ever seen. Avengers. Doomsday is the massive crossover that's been years in the making, directed by the Russo brothers, the filmmakers behind Infinity War and Endgame, the two most successful entries in the franchise. Robert Downey Jr. returns to the universe as Victor Von Doom, one of the most impactful announcements Marvel has made in years. The cast includes Chris Hemsworth, Anthony Mackie, Vanessa Kirby, Paul Rudd, Florence Pugh, Letitia Wright, Kelsey Grammer, and many more familiar faces from across the extended universe. The December 18th release, landing on the same day as Dune, Part 3 turns that weekend into the biggest cinematic event of the year without question. Superhero cinema has an absolutely unmissable date to close out 2026. And that's a wrap. 20 films spanning from Ireland's most intimate horror to the biggest crossover in Marvel Cinematic Universe history. There's something for everyone here. One thing is clear, 2026 is not going to bore you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Until next time.